Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back to SWT English Learning. I'm Jack, your English guide and friend. Today, we're going on a calm but powerful journey. A listening story designed to help you feel English, not just learn it. So, sit back, relax, and listen carefully. Every sentence is simple, every idea is clear, and every moment will help you grow, both in English and in life. One quiet morning, I stood outside a tall glass building with a heavy heart. That place had been my workplace for almost 6 years. But that day, everything changed. I had just received an email that said the company was closing. No warning, no goodbye, just silence. I looked down at the city street. People were walking fast, holding coffee cups, talking on their phones, looking busy, looking sure of their future. But I stood still, unsure, confused, and afraid. I found a small bench near the bus stop and sat down. My fingers were trembling. Trembling means shaking because of strong emotion. I wasn't cold, but my heart was. My thoughts were running wild, jumping from one worry to another. What now? I whispered to myself. How will I pay my bills? What will I do tomorrow? For a moment, I felt invisible, like the whole world was moving while I stayed frozen in one place. Then an old man walked by. He wore a gray coat and a blue hat. He stopped for a second, looked at me, and smiled. A simple, kind smile. That small smile felt like sunlight after a storm. He said softly, "Tough day, huh?" His voice was calm and friendly. I nodded, unable to say much. He sat next to me, not too close, not too far. He said, "Son, I lost my job 20 years ago. I thought my life was over. But sometimes life closes one door to show you another one, a better one. You just can't see it yet." I looked at him quietly. His words sank deep inside me. He told me he had once worked in a factory that shut down suddenly. At first, he was angry. Then he decided to learn something new, repairing bicycles. At that time, everyone laughed at him. But today, he owned a small shop where children came with their broken bikes and left with smiles. He said, "Don't let fear decide your life, my friend. Let courage do that." After he left, I sat there for a long time. Something inside me began to shift. Maybe, I thought, losing this job wasn't the end. Maybe it was a chance to rebuild. That evening, I went home and opened an old notebook. The pages were empty, waiting for a new story. At the top, I wrote in big letters, "My new beginning." Then I wrote 3 small promises to myself. I will not give up. I will try one new thing every week. And I will be thankful, even for small things. Writing those words made me feel lighter. Lighter means not heavy, more free, more hopeful. I decided that tomorrow would be different. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The sky outside was soft orange. The city was still half asleep. I made a cup of coffee and stood by the window. For the first time in weeks, I didn't rush. I just breathed and looked at the world slowly waking up. That quiet moment felt peaceful. Peaceful means calm, without stress or noise. I wanted to start my plan, to do one new thing. So I thought, why not go to the park and read something inspiring? I took an old English storybook and walked to a small park near my apartment. The grass was wet with morning dew. A group of kids were flying a red kite. A woman was jogging with her dog. The wind touched my face gently. Gently means softly, not hard or strong. I sat on a wooden bench and opened my book. At first, it was hard to focus. My mind kept going back to my job, my worries. But soon, the words in the book started to pull me in. The story was about a young traveler exploring new lands. I imagined myself as that traveler, scared but curious. When I finished reading, I looked around and felt something beautiful. Everything seemed alive. The sound of birds, the laughter of children, the smell of wet soil. It was as if life itself was whispering, "You're still here. Keep going." That small moment became my first victory. Victory means a success after a struggle. When I got home, I wrote in my notebook, "Today I read outside. I felt alive again." That evening, while walking back from the grocery store, I noticed a small poster on a wall. It said, "Volunteer needed at Animal Rescue Center." There was a photo of a puppy with big brown eyes. I stopped and smiled. I had never worked with animals before, but something about that puppy's eyes made me want to help. The next day, I went to the center. The place was full of barking and wagging tails. A woman named Sarah welcomed me warmly. She said, "We always need kind hands. Do you want to help feed the dogs?" I hesitated for a second. Hesitate means to pause before doing something because you're unsure. Then I said, "Yes, I'd love to." She gave me a small bowl of food and led me to a cage. Inside was a thin, quiet dog with golden fur. His name was Buddy. When I tried to feed him, he stayed in the corner, shaking. Sarah whispered, "He was rescued from the street. He needs time to trust people." So I sat down on the floor near him. I didn't speak. I just waited. After a few minutes, Buddy took a small step, then another, until his nose touched my hand. He started eating slowly. At that moment, I felt something melt inside me, like sadness turning into care. I realized that healing takes patience, both for animals and for people. When I left the shelter that day, Sarah smiled and said, "See you tomorrow?" And I said, "Yes, definitely." For the first time in months, I was looking forward to something. That night, I wrote in my notebook, "Day 2, I met Buddy. I learned that kindness is a language everyone understands." I closed the notebook, turned off the light, and smiled. Maybe, just maybe, life was teaching me how to start again, slowly, gently, step by step. The next morning, I walked back to the animal shelter with a small bag of treats in my hand. The air was cool, and the sun was soft and golden. When I entered, Buddy saw me and wagged his tail slowly. To wag means to move side to side, like dogs do when they're happy. That little movement filled me with joy. It meant he remembered me. Sarah, the volunteer from yesterday, waved at me. "You're early," she said. I smiled. Couldn't wait to see Buddy. For the next few hours, we cleaned cages, washed bowls, and played with the animals. Each dog had its own story. One had been found near a bridge. Another was left behind after its family moved away. Hearing these stories made me realize how important compassion is. Compassion means a feeling of deep kindness when you see someone suffering and want to help. When I left the shelter that afternoon, I felt tired, but it was a good kind of tired. My hands smelled like soap. My shoes were muddy, but my heart was light. I had done something that mattered, even if it was small. That evening, I sat by my window again. The street lights glowed softly, and cars passed slowly below. I opened my notebook and wrote, "Day 3. Helping others heals you, too." Days turned into weeks. Each morning brought a new rhythm, a quiet, simple routine. I woke up early, read for a bit, then went to the shelter or walked in the park. It wasn't exciting, but it was peaceful. And peaceful moments, I learned, are the seeds of strength. But one afternoon, something unexpected happened. When I returned home, there was a note stuck to my door. It said, "Building for sale. All tenants must move out within 30 days." My heart sank.
Sank means it suddenly felt heavy, full of sadness or fear. I sat on my bed, holding the paper in my hand. Not again, I whispered. I had just started feeling stable, and now this. For 2 days, I felt lost, walking around the city, checking apartments, making phone calls, finding nothing. On the third evening, I walked into a small cafe to rest. The smell of coffee filled the air. There were a few students studying quietly. I ordered tea and sat by the window. An old man at the next table noticed me sighing. He smiled and said, "Bad day, young man?" I nodded. "I have to find a new place to live." He stirred his coffee slowly. He said, "You know, home is not always a building. Sometimes it's the people you share it with." His words stayed in my head. That night, I searched again, this time for shared houses, places where people rent together. I found one not far from the park. It wasn't perfect, small room, a bit noisy area, but it was affordable, and I thought, maybe this is the new door I'm supposed to open. A week later, I moved in. My new home was a small 2-story house with 3 other people. One of them was Liam, a painter who loved listening to jazz music. The other 2, Maya and Chris, were university students studying architecture. At first, I stayed in my room most of the time. It felt strange sharing a kitchen and living room with strangers. But one evening, while I was making dinner, Liam walked in holding a paintbrush. He smiled and said, "Smells good. Is that curry?" I laughed. "Yes, my favorite comfort food." Comfort food means food that makes you feel happy and safe, especially when you're stressed. He sat at the table and said, "Mind if I play some music?" He turned on a soft jazz tune. The slow rhythm filled the kitchen. We started talking about work, art, and life. That night, for the first time, the house felt like home. Over the next few weeks, we shared stories, laughed about little things, and helped each other. Maya showed me how to fix a broken drawer. Chris helped me with my laptop. In return, I cooked for them on weekends. Those small acts created connection, and connection is what turns strangers into friends. One rainy morning, I was checking job posts online when I saw an opening at a small language center. They needed a part-time English teacher for beginners. Something inside me jumped. Teaching had always been a dream I never dared to chase. I hesitated for a moment, afraid of failing, but then remembered what the old man had said. Don't let fear decide your life. So I sent my application. A week later, they called me for an interview. The manager, a kind woman named Helen, smiled and said, "Your communication is very natural. We'd love to have you teach a beginner class." I couldn't believe it. I said yes immediately. Immediately means without delay or waiting. That night, I wrote in my notebook, Day 45. A new door opened. I just had to knock. My first class was on a Monday morning. 10 students sat in front of me, nervous, shy, but ready to learn. Their notebooks were open, their pens waiting. I smiled and said, "Good morning, everyone. My name is Jack. Welcome to your first English lesson." Some smiled, some whispered to each other. I could see the same fear in their eyes that I once had, fear of mistakes. So I said softly, "Here we don't fear mistakes. Mistakes are proof that you're trying." The students laughed, and the tension broke. Tension means the feeling of stress or nervousness. We practiced simple greetings, small conversations like, "Hello, how are you?" "I'm fine, thank you." At the end of class, they clapped. One student said, "Your way of teaching makes English feel easy." That simple sentence filled me with pride. When I returned home, Liam asked, "How was your first day, Teacher Jack?" I smiled and said, "It was wonderful. I think I found what I was meant to do." But not every day went smoothly. 1 week later, I made a big mistake. I mixed up the lesson plans and gave my students the wrong worksheet. They got confused and laughed. I felt embarrassed. Embarrassed means feeling shy or uncomfortable because you made a mistake. After class, I apologized to them. "Sorry, everyone, I gave you the wrong paper today." They smiled and said, "It's okay, teacher. We still learned new words." Their kindness touched me deeply. It reminded me that perfection isn't necessary. Honesty is. That evening, I wrote in my notebook, Day 59. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real. Teaching slowly became my favorite part of the week. Every smile from a student felt like a small light in my day. I realized that learning is not one way. Teachers learn too. They learn patience, empathy, and joy. Empathy means understanding how someone else feels and caring about it. One afternoon, a student named Rena stayed after class. She said, "Teacher, when I first joined, I was afraid to speak, but now I can talk to my foreign customers at work." Her eyes shined with pride. At that moment, I understood that teaching was not just a job, it was a way to give confidence to others. That night, as rain tapped softly on the window, I thought about how far I had come. From losing my job to finding my passion, it had been a long road, but every step mattered. I looked at my notebook. So many pages were now filled with words, lessons, mistakes, hopes, and I realized those words weren't just notes, they were proof of growth.
The next few months were like watching a flower slowly bloom. My students began to open up, just like petals in the sun. At first, they spoke with hesitation. Hesitation means a small pause when you're unsure. But soon, they started to smile, laugh, and use English with confidence. Every time they said something new, I felt a spark inside me. It was the joy of seeing someone grow. That joy reminded me why I had started teaching in the first place. Not for money, but for meaning. One afternoon, after class, I stayed behind to clean the whiteboard. As I erased the last word, Helen, the manager, walked in. "Jack," she said, "we've been getting great feedback about your lessons. Students say they feel comfortable with you." I smiled. That's the best compliment I could ever get. She nodded. "We're opening a new weekend program for beginners who can't come on weekdays. Would you like to lead it?" I paused. My mind flashed back to the first day I walked into the shelter, nervous and unsure. And now here I was, trusted, respected, and doing something I loved. "Yes," I said finally. "I'd love to." That weekend, I walked into a different classroom, smaller, with colorful posters on the walls and sunlight pouring through big windows. There were 7 students waiting. One of them, an older man in his 50s, stood up and said, "Teacher, I want to learn English because my granddaughter lives abroad, and I want to talk to her." His words touched my heart. We started with simple sentences like, "I like apples." "She is my friend." Then we practiced pronunciation. Pronunciation means how you say words clearly. When the old man said apple, his tongue struggled a bit, but his smile never faded. After class, he said, "Teacher Jack, I will practice every day, I promise." And he did. Each week, his English improved. He reminded me that it's never too late to learn. Outside the classroom, my own life was changing too. My roommates had become like family. On weekends, we'd cook dinner together. Sometimes we played a game called Word Swap, where everyone had to use a new English word in a funny sentence. Maya once said, "Yesterday, I accidentally ate spicy noodles and cried like a movie star." We all laughed so hard that even Liam dropped his paintbrush. That word, accidentally, means you do something by mistake. Those moments taught me something important. Learning happens everywhere, not just in classrooms. When you laugh, talk, and live in English, it becomes a part of you. One evening, while cleaning up, I found an old box in my closet. Inside was my college notebook, filled with dreams I had once written down. One page said, "Create something that helps others learn and grow." I smiled. I was already doing that, but maybe I could do more. The next morning, I talked to Helen. "I've been thinking," I said. "What if we start an English club, a free group where anyone can join to practice speaking?" Helen's eyes lit up. "That's a wonderful idea. Let's call it Speak with Confidence." Within a week, we put up posters around the neighborhood. Free English Practice Club, every Sunday at 4 p.m. At first, only a few people came. Students, shopkeepers, and even a taxi driver. But soon, word spread, and the room filled up every Sunday. The sessions were fun and relaxed. We practiced small talks like, "Where are you from? What do you like to do?" Sometimes we played games, describing pictures, guessing words, or acting out situations like ordering food or asking for directions. The rule was simple. Don't be afraid, just try. People laughed at their mistakes, learned from each other, and kept going. Slowly, that little classroom became a small community, a family of learners. One Sunday, a shy woman named Alina joined the club. She worked at a bakery and wanted to learn English to talk to tourists. At first, she barely spoke. When I asked, "What do you like to bake?" she blushed and said softly, I like cake." Everyone clapped for her small sentence, and her face lit up with pride. A month later, she came to class smiling from ear to ear. "Teacher Jack, yesterday I spoke English with a foreign customer, and I said, 'Hello, what would you like?' and he understood me." Everyone cheered. It was a small victory, but a beautiful one. Moments like that made me realize English is not just a language, it's a bridge between hearts. When someone learns to speak, they don't just say words, they open doors to the world. Around that time, Helen asked me to record a short video for the school's website, a clip where I talked about our English club. I stood in front of the camera, nervous but smiling. "Hello everyone, my name is Jack, and welcome to SWT English Learning. Here you can learn English in simple, natural ways, with stories, daily conversations, and lots of smiles." It wasn't perfect. The lighting was bad, and I said too many times. But when I uploaded it, something amazing happened. People watched, then they commented, then they shared. A week later, someone left a comment that said, "Your way of speaking feels like a friend talking. I'm not afraid to repeat after you." That one sentence made all the hard work worth it. Every video I made after that, I imagined one person watching, tired, unsure, but willing to try. And I wanted my voice to say, "It's okay, you can do it." Slowly, the channel began to grow. One video turned into 10, then 20. People from different countries wrote messages like, "I'm learning English with my son," or "I watch your videos every morning before work," or "I finally understand English conversations." It was humbling. Humbling means it made me feel grateful, not proud. I realized that teaching online wasn't just about sharing knowledge, it was about sharing hope. Each video was a small light in someone's day.
The next months passed like a dream. Every week, more and more people joined the channel. I began receiving messages from all over the world, from students in small towns, from mothers learning English with their children, from taxi drivers who listened during their night shifts. One message said, "Teacher Jack, I live in a village where nobody speaks English. Your videos are my only teacher." I read that line again and again. It made me realize how powerful a single voice can be. A video that I recorded in a tiny living room was now reaching hearts across oceans. Liam smiled one evening while checking the comments. "Jack," he said, "you're not just teaching English, you're teaching courage." I looked at him and said softly, "Maybe courage is the real language we all need." Soon, I started to receive invitations to speak at small schools and community centers. People wanted me to share how I learned to teach through stories. The first time I stood in front of a live audience, I felt nervous again, that same shaking feeling I had on my first day as a teacher. But then, I looked at their faces, full of hope, and I remembered, this isn't about me, it's about them. So I told my story, how I lost my job, met Buddy the dog, and slowly rebuilt my life through teaching. I told them that English is not a wall, it's a bridge. When you speak even a few words with confidence, people listen. The audience clapped, some even teared up. After the talk, a young woman came to me and said, "I wanted to give up learning English, but after hearing you, I will keep going." Her words felt like sunshine on my heart. The next morning, I sat by my window with a cup of tea. I thought about everything that had happened, from my small mistakes to my growing success. But I also felt something else: pressure. With every new video, every new follower, expectations were rising. One day, I posted a video that didn't do well. It had fewer views, fewer comments. I felt disappointed. Liam noticed and said, "Don't chase numbers, Jack. Remember why you started: to help people." He was right. It's easy to forget your purpose when the world starts to notice you. So I made a rule for myself. Every video must come from the heart, not from the algorithm. When I spoke honestly, people felt it. And that honesty became my strength. One evening, a student from my English club named Rena came to visit. She said, "Teacher Jack, because of your videos, I got a new job in customer service. Now, I speak English every day." Her smile was wide and full of pride. I congratulated her, and she said, "Can I share my story in one of your videos?" "Of course," I said. The next week, we filmed her interview. She told viewers how scared she had been at first, how she practiced small phrases daily, and how speaking gave her confidence. That video became one of the most loved on the channel. It wasn't because it was perfect. It was because it was real. I realized then that SWT English learning wasn't my story anymore. It was everyone's story. Every learner, every teacher, every person who decided to try again. Months turned into a year. The channel crossed 100,000 subscribers. Liam surprised me with a small cake shaped like a YouTube button. We laughed, took photos, and even spilled some frosting on the floor. Later that night, as I held the silver play button in my hands, I whispered, "This isn't metal, it's memory." Each view, each comment, each word was a tiny spark,
that built this light. But success also brought challenges. Emails, sponsorship offers, interview requests. My days became busier than ever. At first, I tried to do everything myself. Filming, editing, replying to comments, planning lessons. Soon, I was exhausted. One night, while editing a video at 2 a.m., my computer froze, and I lost hours of work. I dropped my head on the desk. "I can't do this anymore," I muttered. At that moment, Maya walked in. She looked at me and said, "Jack, you've helped so many people. Maybe now it's time to let others help you." Her words hit home. So the next day, I posted a message on the channel. "I'm looking for volunteers who want to join SWT English Learning. People who love teaching, editing, or just want to spread English joy." The response was overwhelming. Within a week, I had messages from teachers in India, translators from Egypt, and editors from Brazil. They all wanted to be part of something meaningful. I realized I wasn't alone anymore. SWT English Learning had become a family, a global team working together to make learning simple and beautiful. With the new team, we started subtitles in different languages: Spanish, Arabic, Thai, Portuguese. Now, people could learn English while reading in their own language. Comments flooded in. "Thank you. Now my mother can understand your lessons too." It was heartwarming. Heartwarming means something that makes you feel happy and full of love inside. We also began a new series called English from Life. In each episode, I took viewers outside, to the market, the bus stop, the park, and showed how to use English naturally in daily life. Simple phrases like, "How much is this?" "I'd like a cup of tea." "Where is the nearest station?" Viewers loved it because it felt real and useful. But not every day was easy. Once, I received a harsh comment. "Your accent is not perfect. You shouldn't teach." For a moment, my heart sank. Then, I smiled. I replied kindly, "Thank you for watching. I believe English is for everyone, not just for those who speak perfectly." To my surprise, hundreds of viewers replied under that comment defending me, saying, "His way helps us understand. Perfect is boring. Jack is real." That moment reminded me again, when you stay kind, people stand with you. One afternoon, while filming in the park, a young boy ran up to me and said, "Are you Teacher Jack from YouTube?" I laughed and nodded. He said, proudly, "I watch your videos every day. My favorite word is courage." He ran back to his parents, shouting, "Mom, that's him!" I stood there for a minute, smiling. Sometimes you don't realize how your words travel, but they do. They reach hearts you'll never see. That evening, I walked home slowly, feeling grateful. The sunset painted the sky orange and pink. I whispered, "Thank you, life, for letting me teach, learn, and live this dream." When I returned home, Liam was painting a new canvas. He looked at me and said, "You look peaceful today." I smiled. Maybe peace is the reward for doing what you love. Then I sat down, opened my old notebook, and turned to the first page. There were the words I had written so long ago. Create something that helps others learn and grow. I traced the words with my finger and added one more line beneath them. And never stop learning yourself. That night, I recorded a new video titled, Don't give up on your English. I spoke slowly, clearly, from my heart. Maybe you failed an exam. Maybe people laughed at your accent. Maybe you think you're too old or too busy. But let me tell you, you can still learn. Every time you repeat a sentence, every time you listen, you grow a little more. Don't give up. Keep going. Because one day, you'll surprise yourself. When I uploaded it, the comments were full of gratitude. I cried listening to this. This was the push I needed. My dream feels possible again. At that moment, I realized that true teaching is not about grammar or vocabulary. It's about giving people faith in themselves. The next morning, I woke up to a message from Helen. Jack, a large education platform, wants to feature SWT English Learning as one of the most inspiring English channels of the year. I laughed in disbelief. All those nights of struggle had led to this. I didn't feel famous. I felt thankful. Thankful for the students, the friends, the moments of doubt that made me stronger. That evening, I wrote in my notebook, Day 240. Success is not something you chase. It's something that grows when you keep doing good things.
A few days later, I received the official invitation from the education platform. They wanted me to speak at their annual event, a big gathering of teachers, students, and creators from around the world. The topic was, How Stories Help Us Learn English. I smiled when I read the title, because stories had changed my life and the lives of so many people who listened to SWT English Learning. The day of the event arrived. The hall was bright and full of people. Some were teachers, some were learners, and some were just curious about this small channel that had grown so much. When it was my turn to speak, I walked slowly to the stage. My hands were cold, but my heart was warm. I looked at the audience and began with a simple sentence. Hello, my friends. My name is Jack. I'm not a perfect teacher, but I teach with love. A few people smiled. I continued. When I started SWT English Learning, I didn't have a big plan. I only had one dream, to help people speak English without fear. I told them about the old notebook, about Buddy the dog, about the old woman who had once told me, every problem is a chance. I shared how I had lost my job, lost my home, and even lost my confidence. But step by step, word by word, I had found my purpose again. The audience was silent, listening carefully. So I added softly, when you teach from your heart, people listen with theirs. And then something beautiful happened. When I finished my talk, everyone stood up and clapped. Some even shouted, Jack, Jack! I couldn't stop smiling. In that moment, I didn't feel like a teacher or a speaker. I felt like part of a big family of learners. After the event, many people came to talk to me. A young man said, Your story gave me hope. I want to start my own English club now. A teacher from Japan said, I use your videos in my classroom every week. And an older man from Brazil said, I started learning English at 60 because of you. Their words filled my heart. I realized again, every person has the power to inspire someone else. Even if you speak slowly, even if your words are simple, your message can still touch lives.
That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window and watched the stars. Then I whispered, Thank you, universe, for giving me a second chance. I remembered all the small steps that had brought me here. The cold morning when I lost my job, the first time I read in the park, the first dog I fed, the first video I posted, the first student who said, "I understand now." Every small step had mattered. Every failure had become a lesson. Every tear had become a seed of strength. Weeks passed after the event, and life slowly returned to normal, if normal is even the right word. I still made videos, still replied to comments, still laughed with Liam and Maya during editing breaks. But something inside me had changed. I felt calm. I no longer rushed. I no longer compared myself to others. I just enjoyed the journey. One evening, Maya looked at me and said, "You know, Jack, your videos are not just about English anymore. They're about life." I smiled. Maybe English is just the doorway, and behind it is everything else. The next video I recorded was called "The Language of Hope." I spoke slowly, softly. Sometimes we think learning English is only about words and grammar. But every time you say, "I will try again," you're already speaking the language of hope. When you say, "I believe in myself," you're already fluent in the language of courage. And when you say, "Thank you," you are mastering the language of kindness. It became one of the most shared videos on the channel. People wrote in the comments, "This isn't just English, it's life lessons." This video healed my heart. Reading those words, I felt tears in my eyes, not of sadness, but of gratitude. A few months later, I visited the old park where I used to sit and read. The same bench was still there. I sat down with my notebook, just like years ago. But this time, I didn't feel lost. I felt peaceful. A small bird landed near me. I smiled and whispered, "Hello again." I opened my notebook and wrote a new line. Never forget where you started, because that's where your strength lives. As the sun began to set, I recorded one last message for my viewers. Not an ending, but a new beginning. I looked into the camera and said, "Hello, my friends. Thank you for walking this long road with me. Thank you for every comment, every message, every moment of support. Remember this: English is not just a language you study. It's a journey you live. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to keep trying. Every sentence you speak, every word you learn, is one more step forward. And even when you feel lost, even when life is difficult, keep going. Because one day, you'll look back and realize that you have become the story you once wanted to hear." Then I smiled, waved at the camera, and said my favorite words: "Keep learning, keep practicing, and keep believing in yourself. Bye for now." The screen faded to black. Soft music played, and in white letters appeared SWT English Learning. Created with love, shared with the world.